All right. Welcome again, everyone, to our Campus Engagement Day here at Carnegie Mellon University. My name is Katie Flanagan, and I am a career consultant in the Career and Professional Development Center. Today's session is going to feature speakers from programs at the university that prepare students for careers in communications. And so our two lovely speakers will present a little bit about their concentrations in the specific programs, and we'll turn it over to you as the employers for Q&A afterwards. So again, just a reminder for the presentation, please keep your microphones muted. And once we do ask our questions, you can absolutely unmute, or if you want to drop questions in the chat, that's great too. And you can save your questions till the end. But I would like to introduce our speakers for today. So we have Gang Liu and we have Kenya Dworkin, and they can further introduce themselves, their studies, and what they're teaching. And I'll let them take it away.
All right. So thank you very much, Katie. So I'm going to share, my screen with you right now. Okay. So, all right. Again, my name is Gang Liu. I'm an associate teaching professor in the Modern Languages department. So today I'll be presenting with my colleague Kenya, and basically on the program itself, right? So this is what we are going to cover in today's presentation. So we will talk a little bit about the modern language undergrads and graduate programs. And we'll discuss some of the sample courses that we have here, and also the student skills that they have built up by the time they graduate. And also we'll talk about one of a very popular program, and the GCAT program, a master program in global communication and applied translations in that. So most of you, when you think about modern languages, you will probably think about, okay, that's a department that teaches all the language classes. Well, that's actually correct and incorrect at the same time, because we do teach languages. And as you can see from the program itself, we have the typical programs and the language and cultural studies program that you will usually find in the modern language departments. We have the Arabic studies, Chinese studies, French and Francophone studies, German studies, Hispanic studies, Italian studies, Japanese studies, and the Russian studies. So these are the typical language and cultural and area studies that you will usually find in a modern language department. But in addition to that, we also have something quite new. We have the applied multilingual studies, and we also have a very new but also very innovative program called Immersive Technologies. Right. So most of the programs that we have in the department, they have majors and minors. And so some of them also have study abroad programs here. And so a lot of students here. So I can show you a list of the courses that we are teaching here. Of course, they do not cover all the courses that we have been teaching in the departments, as we said before, and we do teach all those like typical language programs, elementary Chinese, elementary Spanish, and things like that in the departments, but they are way too long for me to list all the courses here, right? So the sample courses that I give you here is to show you that what we do here in the department is more than just language teaching. So in addition to all those language classes at different levels, we also offer courses in cultural and intercultural studies. As you can see from here, we have the intercultural and global inquiry of minorities and migrants. And we also have comparative China perceptions through YouTube and TikTok. And we have the multiculturalism and ethnic diversity courses. And we also have courses on focusing on social issues. So one of the courses that we'll be offering in the fall semester actually focus on the environment and society in modern Chinese literature and visual culture, right? And we also have courses on Eastern Europe, the society and cultures. And in addition to the cultural and intercultural studies and social study courses, we also have courses focusing on technology and professions. As the one that we have here, we have the business language and culture in China. We have career, cultures, and languages. We also have issues in Japanese technology and society. So what I want to show here is that the identity of departments, it's just like the courses that we are offering in the department. It's very complex, and probably just primarily because of this complexity of the department in terms of identity. So most of our students, so by the time they graduate, they do not only have competence in a language or more than one language other than English, they also have very strong skills in cultural and intercultural communications. And they also have very strong skills in independent learning, independent research, problem solving, and critical thinking skills as well. But of course, we cannot take all the credits for our own department, right? So one of the reasons for that our students are so strong and that they have this kind of multiple skills is because most of our majors or minors students in the modern language department, they also have other majors or minors in other fields. For example, we often have students who majors in Hispanic studies, but also have another major in engineering or biology. We have students who do Chinese studies and computer science at the same time. We have students who do German studies and also business at the same time. So many of our students, so in addition to modern languages, they also majored or minors in other fields as well. And on top of that, and since we mentioned before that a lot of programs have these study abroad programs, and so the students, they do have the chance to study abroad in a different country for a semester or sometimes for entire year. And and sometimes the students also do all those kind of different internships with local international companies or organizations. So this give them the opportunity to develop different kinds of like communicative and intercultural and interpersonal skills that's much required when they actually start to work in the society. And in addition to that, and so for many of the students, some of them need to do a senior thesis in their senior year. And even if they are not doing a senior thesis, and many of the classes, because they are interdisciplinary in nature, so they require students to have this kind of interdisciplinary research. That's like requires them to not only in the target language, but also in English as well. Right. So I'm going to, my colleague Kenya, and she will speak a little bit more about the different kind of hard skills and soft skills that our students have. And she will also talk a little bit about our grad programs and especially the GCAT program. Interested.
Okay. Thank you, Gang. Can you go back to the list of courses just a second?
Sure.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that it was clear to everyone that the majority of the courses on this list are taught in the target language, meaning that they're taught in Chinese, Spanish, French, etc. We do teach some courses in English, generally at the lower levels for a more general student population, but it's important to understand that when the students are getting up to the 3rd and 4th year in the modern language they're studying, that they are able to engage with materials, whether it's film, text, do research, etc. They're doing this in the target language, and they're doing their work in the target language. And I think that's important, which is something that you don't normally think about when you think about early language learning, you know, 1st year language learning or 2nd year language learning. Thank you. Also, just to answer a question that was in the chat, Damola, thank you very much for the question. The course, Comics, Community, and Coding, Electronic Textuality and Culture in Latin America, was designed by a colleague of mine in Hispanic Studies, Felipe Gomez. And essentially, he has taught a number of courses that connect to a project that he has, which is to create a digital archive of Latin America and Latinx comics. And he's actually waiting to see if he gets some additional funding to continue to do this. So this is a course that's taught in Spanish. It's a 400 level course, but he is teaching the students coding, and he and the students are are documenting through coding and putting different comics online and creating keywords, etc. So this is actually pretty exciting work. And he also teaches the podcasting, one of the podcasting courses in Spanish. So he's very into technology, but he's not the only member of the department who does this. That happens to be a really popular course. So thank you for your question. And yes, Felipe has done, he's from Colombia actually, and he has taught a course on popular music in Latin America, and also on the importance of radio and the political functions of radio in Latin America. He's had students do conversations with a particular radio station in some very forsaken area of Colombia, where the radio station has managed to make contact with people who have kidnapped Colombian citizens, and the radio station facilitates conversations between the kidnapped people and their families. So it's, you know, it's pretty dynamic work. And I myself have also taught on Cuban hip hop, particularly, especially underground hip hop. So thank you for your interest. And I did click on the link, and so I'm going to take a look at your page afterwards. Thank you. So can we move forward again? Thank you. So one of the things that I always hear, you know, people talking about, especially at a school like CMU, that it's very tech driven, even though we have, you know, the nation's first drama program and a really highly ranked College of Fine Arts and Fine Humanities program and so on and so forth, is that, you know, employers are looking for hard skills, meaning they want hard skills like technological skills. But it turns out that hard skills are not just technological skills. And it turns out that soft skills really sounds like a negative counterpart to hard skills. And so some people call them people skills or interpersonal skills, but I kind of wanted to give you an idea of the kinds of the very robust toolkit that our students are graduating with, because they're doing language studies and then they're combining that with many other disciplines. So obviously the first one is that these people are at least proficient in 2 languages. Many of our students are proficient in 3 or 4. They are getting a degree that is acknowledging that certificate. I mean, typing speed, obviously, I learned how to type on a real typewriter or manual. The students nowadays work on their laptops at a speed where you can't see their fingers. But anyway, they have this as a skill. Many of them are very proficient in a lot of computer programs already. They know how to use different kinds of technological tools, whether they're in the cloud or they're hardware. Many of them know how to do programming, and all of them are required to do computing at CMU for a year. But the so-called soft people skills have to do with the fact that these students are excellent communicators, and they're excellent communicators in more than one language. And they know how to communicate in a way that is culturally both appropriate and sensitive. They're flexible. They can flip back and forth between worlds and the expectations of those 2 worlds. They often assume leadership roles on research projects and so on, so that they're used to both working in a team, but also being responsible for the other members of the team and for making sure a final product is produced. And at CMU, there is no student who will survive or graduate if they do not become extremely proficient in time management, because that is the key to success at CMU more than anything else, because they are very busy. So I just kind of wanted to give you a sense of the kinds of skills that they get to combine. And I'm always reminding the students of this as well, because when they go to tech fairs and when they go to job fairs, they see that the vast majority of the jobs or the employers there are in technology, or in some more technically oriented field. And yet it turns out that a lot of these companies are actually looking for people who have what they're calling soft skills as well. Because a lot of people who devote themselves to tech only don't develop a lot of those other skills. So anyway, I wanted to kind of bring that. There's a question here. Does CMU have students who have a cultural language focus, who are also minoring in data science. Oh yeah, data science, not only minoring, but majoring. Data science is now a huge major in our college, in the humanities and social science college, as is statistics. So, and we do have a linguistics program, and we have a program in machine learning. So the students who are interested in that do get to work in AI and in natural language data, and also in machine translation and so on. So yes, that's not all in our own department, but we do get students like that, yes. So we can move forward to the next slide. Okay, so as Agan mentioned before, we have several graduate programs. We have 2 master's programs, one of which is actually on hiatus at this moment and will be relaunched in 2024. That's the Master's in Applied Second Language Acquisition, which is really aimed more at people who want to go out and teach language and work in language programs. Then there's the Master's in Global Communication and Applied Translation, GCAT, and then we have the one PhD program is in Second Language Acquisition, which also is subdivided in a number of categories. But I'm going to talk to you about GCAT because I'm one of the co-directors of the program. The other co-director could not be with us today. So this Master's in Global Communication and Applied Translation is very different from a lot of the very established translation programs in the country, like at Kent State, for example, where there's a heavy emphasis on theory. There's a heavy emphasis on our program, both on applied translation, that is hands-on work, but also on the sociolinguistic, pragmatic aspects of communication that take into account things like audience, educational level, politics, all kinds of things that can influence what a final translation will look like. That may not have much to do with the words themselves, but more about the context in which they were written and the context in which they're going to be read. So our program is a 3-semester program that includes also a summer, where the students are given training in the principles and practices of professional translation, localization, which is a big area now, especially for people who want in marketing or who want their websites to be acceptable and accessible to different to people in different countries where their languages may use different characters or alphabets, or where even a choice of color can make a huge difference. Just a lot of things like that. And then on global communication, so they build expertise through coursework in some theory and approaches to translation, and a lot of cross-linguistic and cross-cultural analysis by being exposed to probably 10 or 12 different genres. So even if the student enters the program with an interest, let's say in technical translation or literary translation or computer translation, they all have to do training in everything from literature and journalism to medical translation to scientific translation to marketing to subtitling and stuff. So they leave the program with a bit of experience in a number of domains. They also do project-based collaborations, not only as in-class assignments, but during their last semester, they do out of CMU client-based final projects. And then the summer that they, the one summer they have to do an internship, and is then they either do an internship abroad or somewhere nationally or even locally, where they have to do a minimum of 320 hours in some aspect of translation, whether it's actual translation or project management or many other things that it can be. But I did want to highlight too that we have just launched in the middle of the pandemic, a 4+1 program, which is a program that we now have. We're going to have 2 incoming students in, and we've already had a few undergraduates take courses with us, but not officially for the MA. But this 4+1 possibility allows qualified seniors or juniors, I'm sorry, to apply, and they can begin their MA in their senior year while they're completing whatever else they're doing for their undergraduate degree. And then they finish up in 4 semesters instead of 3, and also have to do the internship. So we now have 2 people in this program, and we have people coming from really different disciplines. In fact, one of the students who took an undergraduate class was in the architecture program, and she was she gave some testimony as to why she found it so fascinating to be in the class. And it was because it helped her understand how other people think. And she as an architect, she wants to really understand her clients and the communities in which that she'd be building or designing for. And she felt that the class offered her that, even though she's not specifically going to go into translation. So it's interesting how many disciplines out there in the job world where someone who comes in with translation skills plus X, Y, or Z is bringing something additional to that company or to that organization that most people can't bring. Even if their full-time or even part-time job is not going to be to translate. Okay, that's it for that slide. And I wanted to give you an idea. This is what I try to disabuse the students of, the limited notion that all they can do with a degree in translation is translate. And so, I mean, just straightforward translation. And I'm not even talking about interpreting, but here they have obviously many possibilities in the armed forces, in the AV world, in business and finance, and civil service or the diplomatic service, you know, editing, education, human resources, IT and localization, which is a really big one now, marketing, journalism, medicine and science, social media, video game translation, education, intelligence, that's another big field, artificial intelligence, another big field, law, manufacturing, entertainment. The entertainment industry is another place, since now film and so many things are so global. Travel and tourism, scientific research, and communications. And that's, you know, that's not even the whole list, but I want to give them an idea that even if they're majoring in, you know, X, Y, or Z, that it's very likely that they're going to be able to make a connection, not only if they're studying a second language or a third language, but if they learn translation skills. And I think that's it. So I wanted to reiterate then that, you know, the students who are our students in modern languages, who then are double majors or do a minor in other areas or vice versa, receive a very interdisciplinary education that prepares them both with hard skills and soft skills. They excel in communication because our majors and minors are all about communication. And actually students get to know each other and know us much more than they do in a lot of other disciplines, because it's all about communication. We have to talk. So teamwork, they do leadership and digital literacy, and also problem solving, which is a big thing at CMU. They're very resilient because I can remember now that probably only 8% of the US's college students major in foreign languages. So they're already a self-selected, unique group of people who are taking on an extra challenge. They're resilient, they're adaptable, and they have a highly developed work ethic because they have taken on a really extra load. And they're both intercultural and they're interlinguistically fluent. And that's another thing. It's not enough to be bilingual. You have to know how to be culturally appropriate in the culture and society of that other language. Otherwise, you can commit very, very terrible faux pas. And a long time ago, I had a student, not here, somewhere else, who landed a huge job, a contract in Saudi Arabia. And he was so excited that he invited the gentleman in Saudi Arabia out to celebrate, to drink. And they took the contract back because they didn't drink, because they were Muslims. So this is the kind of thing that is very important about intercultural communication, to know what's appropriate. And I think that now that's it. So we were looking for questions, and there you go. It's in all our languages.
All right.
Yeah. I think there's a new one. Yeah, oh, sorry, Katie, go ahead.
Oh,
There's a question. I see a question about English, and actually, unfortunately, I am not really qualified to answer that, but there are courses in the English department. First of all, they have a program in professional writing. So that is a very important skill, because they are trained to write in a way that a lot of other people are not. But they also have courses in rhetoric and style and things like that. But beyond that, I really can't answer that. And unfortunately, the person who couldn't be here today would be better prepared to answer that question. But yes, they are very much prepared for communications as well, in different ways,
Yeah, so to kind of supplement that, I'm dropping in the chat a link to our post outcomes for our students. So if you wish to explore what paths are available to students who major and minor in English or any of the other programs that we've been chatting about here, you can definitely look that up, and it's from the last 4 years. We're collecting that data right now for our class of 2022, and we'll be excited to get that collected over the next couple months and produce that all for the employers on the call too.
Yeah, actually, we just had our graduation, and Gang, do you remember what some of your students are doing? One is going on to graduate school, I remember, right?
Yes, I think many of them, we have 2 students. One of them is going to Columbia University to pursue an MBA program there. And but before that, I think she's going to take a year off, just finish writing her first book. And
Yeah,
the
right.
other one, I think she graduated last year. She's already working in a consulting company in New York. And so we have one student who's going back to London and also working in a consulting company.
You're right. And in Hispanic studies, as I recall, we have someone who's already got a job with the National Institute of Health with the NIH and doing a really high level research there. And the other one is staying in Pittsburgh to work locally to continue a lab project with professors of hers. And as far as our graduates are concerned from the GCAT program, we have somebody doing project management at Global Wordsmiths, a local translation company. They've done work with the Pittsburgh Public Schools, translating materials for them, working with the language access program here for the city of Pittsburgh. We have someone who's advising student applicants from China, who is in California, I believe. I can't remember anybody else right now. Oh, and someone who's still looking for work in literary translation. I was just in touch with her, but she had COVID most of the summer actually, so she's been kind of slowed down by that. But it's really somewhat amazing what some of the paths these students come back 5 years later and they tell you, they're working at an NGO, they're working, at some big, they're going to New York and working for a big Wall Street firm. It varies. Go to medical school. I mean, they do a lot of things. Of students who have years ago who graduated in Spanish, and he and married a woman who was studying nursing at a local school, and they opened up a clinic in an impoverished neighborhood in Detroit. I mean, it's just pretty amazing, some of the stuff the students do. So we have currently a student in the translation program who is working on the university's WeChat site for China to be able to give the students in China more information, because we get a lot of applicants from China. So it's pretty amazing, the career paths.
Great. We also had some questions pre-submitted as well.
Oh, okay.
So for those employers who like to be a little bit more hands-on, what would be the best way to share about their organization or company or opportunities with students?
Well, it might be that perhaps they should be contacting our communications person and maybe copying, us and the communications person, because she would be the one probably to be putting that information out to our students. And that's Kellyanne Tsai. Hold on a second. Let me minimize my window a second. Do you think that would be right, Gang?
Yeah, I think she should probably be the person that's should be contacted first. I can stop sharing the screen so you.
I'm going to copy her email and put it in the chat if that's okay. Yeah, but I would suggest I'll put our emails in there too, and that would probably be the best, because then we'll know. She like, if Kellyanne had any questions, she'd be able to know. We'd be able to answer them as to why am I getting this email. Okay, Kellyanne, here we go. She's our new communications person. Yeah, let's see. Kellyanne Tsai, here it is. Okay. This is our communications person, Kellyanne. And Gang, you want to put your email in there?
Sure.
All right, perfect.
And mine is, oops, sorry. The other thing is, I mean, if we get, it occurs to me that we might, if we get material from a number of companies or organizations, that we might be able to have some kind of an informal session with students, you know, like maybe a student gathering for information about potential jobs or places to look for jobs. We have an undergraduate committee that organizes events for modern languages students, and that could very well be the topic of one of the sessions. So that would just be a question of seeing if we have critical mass and maybe even have some of you come and visit if you know if we can get something organized, right?
Right. Another question sent was, what kinds of hands-on projects could we as the employers create to partner with your students in a course?
Well, if you're talking about translation students, that's sort of a given. But I mean, if you're talking about undergraduates, it may be a question of coming up with a short list of themes or topics that your company or your organization is involved with, and then seeing if it overlaps with content areas in some of the courses. That would be a kind of a way to match things up a little bit. But for the translation, that would be a little bit more, that would be perhaps easier. If that's material that needs to be translated, we would need to share our calendar, so to speak, when students would be able to do this stuff. But sometimes even when I look at the names of companies, it doesn't necessarily tell me what the company is about. And oftentimes companies are about more than one thing, you know, so it would be interesting to see, to get a list of like I say, topics. Is it marketing? Is it where are you marketing to? Things like that, that would perhaps stimulate interest, you know, like in your business course, Gang, or some other course, maybe with what would be appropriate, or what is advertising like. One of the things I do when I teach the intro to translation is show the students something as simple as comparing what a McDonald's website looks like in 4 or 5 different countries, and it's vastly different. And the things are marketed very differently. And like I say, colors are important, and food items are differences in food items, and beauty products is another thing I show them, how they're, you know, women's beauty products or hair products, how they're marketed differently. Another one that's really interesting is the automobile industry, and how different, what Germans are very interested in the performance of a car, and Americans tend to be really interested in how, you know, how sexy the car looks, and then, you know, in other countries it's something else. And so what's get put forward is very different according to who you're marketing to. And so it's kind of interesting. So maybe some of that information already exists on your website or in your mission statement or something like that, and you can share it with us.
So I want to add, like, in addition to what Kenya just said, so every summer, I think the university is currently offering experiential learning courses, and
Right.
on campus. It's free to the students, but basically the idea is that the faculty will gather all the students and have them to work on a specific project for
That's
the
right.
entire course. I mean, if some of the company's project can be built into the course, I think that will be a great opportunity, not
Yes.
only for the students, but I
The
mean,
company,
yeah, for the
and
company.
CMU pays them.
Yep.
This is in the Dietrich College. Yeah, in our college. Yeah, they get paid by the university. Yep, it's actually true. And sometimes students do independent studies or internships during the regular semesters, so long as they're able to find a faculty member who's qualified to, you know, supervise it. Because if we have pretty strict requirements for internships with regard to what supervision they have and the kind of evaluation that we expect back and stuff so that they can be graded properly. So.
All right. One question that came in, how was the new minor created to benefit students in the workplace?
The new minor in immersive technologies?
Mm-hmm.
I wish our colleague Stefan was here, but one of our faculty members is the person who curates the Ask with Kenner room, which is a virtually immersive space. It's a technology space in the new Tepper Quad on Forbes Avenue. And basically the students, I'll give you an example. Last week, I went to once again see the Max Vanko murals at St. Nicholas Croatian Catholic Church on the north side. Well, they got somebody to create a 360 virtual visit to those murals. And so it's actually immersive technology can be quite useful, not just in terms of the arts, but also for the healthcare industry, for military training, for all kinds of things. So for gaming. So basically, the minor is going to combine language competence, language culture competence with learning how to do virtual reality, create products in virtual reality and augmented reality. This is another area that I know personally where something like this can be quite significant is in the area of health and human services, particularly dealing with victims of violent crime, things like that, where sometimes face-to-face meetings are either impossible or extremely uncomfortable. So I think I didn't design the minor and it's not my field, but I can see that it's going to have a lot of applications.
Great. And so I see we're getting to the edge of our time here. So if you have any last questions you're holding on to, feel free to put them in the chat or unmute yourself and ask the question. You see there the contact info for Gong and Kenya in the chat, so you can definitely grab that for yourself right now too. Okay, one other question. What other success stories are there for students who pursued a full-time position in a communications role?
In a communications role?
Yeah.
I don't know that I'm prepared to answer that. I was just going to say, I found out yesterday that one of my former students who was a playwright and a dramaturg, she was her theater company was nominated for a Pulitzer. I just found that out yesterday. But I mean, in terms of communications, I think it would be great if you could talk to our communication specialist, actually, because she really, a communication specialist today has to not only know more than one language, but also be able to do design, have to handle all the social media, have to handle a great many design and communications programs, and have a thorough appreciation for the depth and breadth of what goes on in our department, for example. So she, if she's going to promote something, it can't sound empty. So I mean, she's got a lot of background in language already, language and culture, but she's also quite in tune. She's young, so she's quite in tune with what students will respond to, because it's different. What the faculty is going to respond to, or the community outside is going to respond to, is different than what 18 to 22-year-olds is going to respond to, in terms of what applications to use and stuff like that. So, for example, we now know that Twitter is no longer popular with our students. When they're using other stuff, Snapchat and TikTok and things like that. So, thank goodness we have Kellyanne. So, but I think it really requires quite a well-rounded education plus a lot of technical skills. You're welcome.
Right. And one last question to wrap us up here. How can we make our internships more appealing to students in your programs?
Wow. Not knowing what field you're in, that's kind of hard, but I think I'll tell you what I've supervised and I taught internships in Washington, D.C. And I'll tell you what students don't want is just busy work, because internships are supposed to they may need to learn how to do something differently, but they have to be able to grow. They have to feel like they're going to be able to grow and not have to have someone hold their hand or supervise them all the time. They have to feel like they earn the right to be seen as someone responsible. So I think that what makes it interesting is that they be challenged. They have to be challenged. It can't be boring. It can't be repetitious necessarily, but it should be challenging and also allow them to bring to bear some of their personal passions, not just their professional skills. So I think it's important not to, I had students in Washington doing internships, and one of them was really very disappointed because he was, the person was on top of him the whole time, and he felt like he wasn't allowed to really even make a mistake, which actually mistakes are important because you learn from mistakes. So he felt like he needed to be left on his own a while. So I would say make it challenging, because CMU students are used to that anyway, but let them bring what they have to whatever it is you need, because you'd be surprised. Sometimes they come up with solutions that or ideas that you wouldn't think of. Who knows? That's interesting. I think, and by the way, if it's an internship the university is paying for, like the one that Gang mentioned, that's obviously very exciting for them. But obviously, if you're offering an internship, they're going to be much more excited if you're paying than if you're not paying, if it's not a university paid internship. And the other thing is that they're looking for is perhaps future possibilities with the company, or with some subsidiary or something. So they don't want it, they could see it as a career path, something where they're growing into a position. I think that's very attractive, especially today.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. And on that note, we will be wrapping up our communications room. So thank you.
Ooh.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Thank you. No, I lost you for a minute, like I couldn't hear you. Yeah.
Well, thank you all for joining.
Thank you for coming. Please be in touch if you have any other questions, okay? Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Enjoy the rest of the